again, everybody, and welcome to episode 31, the Grant Fuhrer episode of Angles and Attitude. He's John and I'm Mark, as always, and today we are joined by a U.S. Hockey Hall of Famer and two-time Stanley Cup winner, Gordie Roberts. Thanks for joining us and welcome to Angles and Attitudes.
Hey, Gordie.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Appreciate having me on.
We're doing well. So we got to start right out of the box, the obvious one. Have you ever met Gordie Howe since that's where you got your first name?
Did I meet Gordie Howe? Well, I played against him.
Yeah.
One year. All that.
In Hartford.
Yep, Hartford days. But I would say when I played against him the first year, I was 18 with the New England Whalers. He was with Houston at that time with his kids, and we had a 7-game series that we ended up going to the end, and I was playing a little bit of center against Gordie Howe, so that was definitely a little bit of a thrill. I think I was 18, he was 46, so
wow,
good memories.
Gordie, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
Let's start right from the beginning. How do you, you're born in Detroit, 1957. How do you get going with this? I mean, I know you're a hockey family because spoke to Dad many years ago, and of course your brother Doug and everybody. How does it start for you?
Yeah, I think with 3 older brothers that all went to Michigan State. I was the youngest of our four brothers. My dad, being a fireman, he definitely knew how to handle a hose and put a nice rink in our backyard. My 2 oldest brothers were kind of gone at this time, and my brother Dave, who is about 8 years older than me, he was kind of in charge of my dad, getting the hockey rink in the backyard and playing with older kids and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I first started skating, and kind of took off from there. Yeah.
So you mentioned obviously, and when it started off on a wrong foot, but what I meant was, had you met him when you were younger, Gordie, but do you have scars to prove that you played against him as an 18-year-old and he's at 40-something? I know Wally Harris mentioned the fact that he had a way about him that you knew it, but he always was able to get away with it.
Yeah, he definitely was a competitor, and he used that stick to get a little extra room out there at times. And that, as long as my brother told me to call him Mr. Howe, and everything seemed okay after that. Instead of calling him Gordie.
There's a lot to that you bring up. We hear stories now about sometimes the lack of respect in the game in terms of that hierarchy, that guy, respecting those who have come before and who are still playing the game, that younger guys don't understand or appreciate at this point in time how much was involved for guys like yourself, or even earlier, to achieve versus the way things are now.
Yeah, I think all young players, even if they're with the NHL team today, I mean, the greatest book I ever read was Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends, Influence People. And, the basic philosophy of the book is just be interested in other people. And, when you're young, you ask good questions and, look up, with Google and everything else, you should, if you're a defenseman and you got 2 older guys that are 32 years old, you might want to know a little bit about their career and ask where they, everyone likes to talk about themselves in a nice way. And I definitely think that, if you respect, especially the veterans around you, and that don't come in thinking you know everything, that type of thing. And, I was fortunate when I first turned pro, I played with my brother Doug, and he was a good mentor to me too. So, in every sport, whether it's your family and different people around you, it definitely pays to have people pointing you in the right direction, and when you're screwing up, telling you at the same time.
How does that work, Gord, where you get drafted by the Canadians, of course, in '77, but you played for the Whalers in the WHA and in that '75, right. And of course, that had to be so cool playing with Doug for those couple seasons there in the WHA. I'd watched or I'd heard that the Howe brothers, Marty and Mark, were, taken in the WHA at that time. Did you fall into that same realm of that young player that, wow, the WHA is going to take you before you went to the NHL?
Yeah, that was kind of a little bit their niche at the time. I mean, competing with the NHL for players and that. I don't remember if the NHL was signing any 18-year-old players. I know the WHA, I had to wait a month before officially. I was only 17, the first training camp and so on. And when my birthday, October 2nd, I was able to play my first pro game. But, I think it just took, a little bit of time for younger players. And, WHA was great for me in a lot of ways. I mean, the perfect world, I would have probably been better off signing a 2-year contract where I was then drafted to 20, the NHL, and I would have had, some guys did this later on, like Hartsburg and Rob Ramage and so on. They played just a couple of years in WHA, and then they went to the NHL pretty much when they were 20, 21 years old. But yeah, I mean, WHA was great for me, and good memories. And being 18, I didn't think I was ready to turn pro by any means. And, with my brother, and, it wasn't fun being the youngest guy all over again. And I was going to be the veteran for the first time in my life in the Western Junior League where I played. So I was kind of looking forward to that. And then I was called rookie again for the next couple of years.
Well, I guess if you had to be a rookie, that's much better than being a rookie back in juniors and carrying pucks and water bottles around. So as they say, I think it worked out well from there. And then you found yourself playing and having a wonderful career with the North Stars in kind of obviously that derivation, the Met Center in Bloomington, and now back again with the Wild and Awe. Share a little bit about some of your experiences when you first got to the North Stars and some of the people there who provided that mentorship for you.
Yeah. Good question. I was fortunate. I was kind of WHA with young players. We talked about at 18 years old and so on. I mean, they definitely like to think you're going to be the next God's gift to Bobby Orr or this guy and that guy. And, they kind of put extra pressure on you, and it was hard to live up to what the media thought you might be and that type of thing. And I think that I didn't maybe reach that star status in Hartford, but I think going to Minnesota, they had a lot of good young players, good team. They went to the semifinals the year before. So, it's kind of a perfect place. Glenn Somore was my coach. Lou Nanny kind of knew and respected U.S. hockey players and all that kind of thing. So I was fortunate to go there and had a nice run of almost probably 7.5 years there. Went to the finals my first year with them against the Islanders in '81. So in Minnesota is, I've lived here a long time. People definitely, it's like Canada of the U.S. in a sense, with just how many people love hockey here.
I always wanted to ask this question to guys who played in the WHA, and we had Andre Lacroix on here a couple of weeks ago, Gordon. Going from the WHA to the NHL, can you answer this honestly? Was it a different caliber when it came to team play or even the style? Because, the WHA was based on a lot of the veterans that were coming over to get some, like the McKenzies, the Keons, and those kind of players. Now, you're coming from the WHA to this NHL style. Was it different style like the National League, American League, and baseball?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think the WHA, did a great job with young players, old players, and, and different guys that got more of an opportunity with ice time and so on and that. But, we probably had lack of depth in a sense. I mean, it was like me coaching a high school team here. We were good, but we weren't great because, the top high school teams had more depth and their third line was that much better than ours. And I think that, WHA, we could field probably 2 good lines and 4 defensemen, but NHL teams had better depth and so on. So it, but it ended up going down to 6 teams that final year of the WHA. And, it's kind of funny in my career, I ended up playing against Wayne Gretzky for 15 years in the NHL. And I think he only played 1 year, 1 or 2 years in the WHA. But that year that we played him 19 times. And, regular season in a 6-7 game series in the playoffs. And him and I, kind of had a little bit of a battle, I was a defenseman, he was a forward and everything else. And, then play against him the rest of my career, it was, kind of, wasn't easy. Let's put it that way. He was a player.
Yeah, well, like you said, to get it started all the way into WHA at 17 or 18 years old, and you just you're getting dressed for a game, and it's like there he is again, and there he is again, and he's in my zone, and he's got the puck, and it's just like, would you ask to match up with him a lot? Is that how on the teams you played on that they tried to match pairs against them versus putting a center on them or a forward?
Yeah, I think, our coach, definitely tried to get his best defenseman out against Gretzky as much as he could. And, I mean, Gretzky, where I first saw him was in Indianapolis when he first came out of junior, and no one really knew who he was. If you hadn't played in that junior league or been from around the Toronto area and so on. I mean, he had a great story behind him, growing up and scoring 100 goals when he was 12 years old and all that stuff. So, I mean, obviously he was a great young player, but I think that, early on, it was, you knew he was going to be good, but then the next year, I mean, he was really good in Edmonton. And then when let's say they're starting to put that whole team together, they really patterned their team. If the story goes, the Winnipeg Jets always had Europeans and combination. Bobby Hall was there at the time, and they really patterned their team after the Winnipeg Jets.
They had Hedberg and Ulf Nielsen, but just going back to Gretzky for a quick minute, because I don't want to make this the Gretzky show, but as a defenseman, I mean, did he throw a lot at you in the way of, every shift? You just didn't know what to expect in those early years?
No, I think, the more you played against him, you realize that the other four guys on the ice, he was able to get the puck to him, so much better than your average player in that. And I think that, Gretzky did a great job of, drawing defenders to him. And sometimes, you get two guys trying to think you're going to take Gretzky out, and then somebody's open all the time. So
sure.
I think that just his hockey sense and the way he could pass the puck, I'm finally a little bit like Gretzky. I play with some older guys now, and now I get the puck, and I feel I'm out there looking and making great plays.
Hey, everybody's got to have their chance in the sun to be dishing it and picking up the apples there. So good for you. No, because to John's point, Andre Lacroix made the comment about that very thing when he got traded to Chicago. They were going to make him the center for Bobby Hull, and he was going to get Hull the puck. And Lacroix made the point. He goes, we played with Chico Mackey. Everybody knew that Chico Mackey wasn't going to score. So they knew I only had one option, was to try to get the puck to Hull. So it never worked. Yeah. And it's just funny how a center reads that and says, no, this is not, he's not going to get the space the way he did with Nielsen and Hedberg in Winnipeg, because those guys were always moving, and he would find some space and get in the lane, and they get him the puck. So. Mm-hmm. Hey, Blackhawk fans, North Stars. So we probably shouldn't even be talking to you. We're going to be, ostracized by a lot of our old Blackhawk season ticket holders at the Chicago Stadium. So within reason, any good Glenn Sonmore stories you can share with us? Because I know he'd always get fired up for the Hawk North Star rivalries.
Yeah. Glenn definitely has some intensity to him as a coach, and good person and all that kind of stuff. I think the biggest story with Glenn is he lost an eye, during the end of his playing career, and he had a glass eye, and he always tend to, especially, during the national anthem, somehow he would pop this eye out, and then he would put it in a little thing, a cup of water, and then, he would pop it back in right before the national anthem was over. And then one time he missed his eye, and it fell, and it was under our bench, and guys were, during the darkness, he was telling guys to find my eye.
Oh, that's a tough way to start the game.
Pretty good line when, he wasn't married then or anything. He was in between divorces or whatever. But, if he was talking to a lady at the bar or something, his line was, hey, can you keep an eye on this? And he would have to go to the bathroom, and,
Oh, man. Well, thank you for that one. But yeah, the intensity of the North Star Blackhawk rivalries, that's one of those things, though. Now, and I'm sure you can, speak to that. That's some of what the game is missing now, that, the fans built up a hatred or a dislike that even though it was November, it still had kind of playoff intensity, if you will.
Yeah, I think, having rivals is, definitely, even this past year in the NHL, I mean, all the Canadian teams played against each other, and, throughout the season you saw, it was kind of like the old days a little bit from that standard, but, there's two sides to it. I mean, I think that there's so many great players out there. The fans want to see a little bit of, everybody out there, and hopefully we can get back to normal with attendance and so on and that. But, the more, that's why playoffs are so exciting in a sense. From 1 to 7 games, you definitely learn to not like your opponent as much, and the games do mean a lot more. And I think that, sometimes there's some stupid things that happen because of too much emotion. So I think you have to keep that in the right check so that you don't do something stupid like that guy in Colorado did last year. I can't remember his name, but Cody or something like that ended up.
No, Kadri, he's
Yeah.
he's a guy that everybody picks him because of that. Pick your cliche, sandpaper grit, whatever it is, especially in the playoffs. And he never plays any playoff games because he's always getting suspended.
Yeah.
And
Right. Yeah.
As a veteran teammate, do you obviously, I think you would try to pull somebody aside and say, hey, the only thing you do any good for us is if you're playing, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they definitely missed him in the playoffs once he was out, and I'm sure he would love to be able to take back that hit that he did, which was stupid at the time, and so on. But I think one of the things when players played, I always wore a helmet, but you talk to some of these guys that played in the '60s and so on. I mean, they always respected their opponent, and I think sometimes when you don't respect your opponent, you end up doing some stupid things. And, it's a physical, intense game. Everyone wants to win, but, you don't want to, hit some guy where he's never going to be able to, play hockey again. That's for sure.
Gordie, you seem to be, and even watching some old stuff on you over the years, and of course, I followed you for a long time. Were you always pretty much that defensive specialist? Because you seem to be out there always in, you were out there in great situations. I mean, there were teams at power plays, you were out there. And everywhere you went, if it was Minnesota, if it was Philadelphia, if it was Pittsburgh, especially at Pittsburgh in the later years when they won the 2 Stanley Cups, you were basically, I mean, you were that stay-at-home defenseman type guy, and you were always out there when, we had the Roenics of the world out there in that series.
Well, there's a great line my old coach, Glenn Somwer, said one time about defensemen like me. And he wasn't directed right at me, but it could be. He said, Gordie, you came in as a crusher, and you came in as a rusher, then you ended up a crusher, and then the end of your career afterwards, you're an usher.
Hey,
I love
it. Yeah.
That's
all defensemen, you come in. I mean, I was in junior. I mean, I was a real offensive guy, and got my share of points and all that kind of stuff. But as time went on, and by the time I got to Pittsburgh in my early 30s, I was definitely more of a defensive type player. But, I think the number one thing that it allows you to do as a good defenseman is move the puck. And when you can make good plays out of your zone, forwards love tape-to-tape passes. And, that was kind of my strong suit in addition. But, we all slow down. You have to adjust. And, when I look back at my career, playing, 21 years, basically, I mean, there's definitely a lot of years that I adjusted. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Well, you have to adapt and overcome. Speaking of that, obviously you play with Mario or Yager and those skill guys. How long does it take to that point? Because I'm sure those guys expect the puck, even though they're skilled. If they catch something in their feet, they can still make something out of it. But there's always stories of, Kaner with the Blackhawks always not being a big fan, maybe being on the ice with Jarmelson because the puck's coming up the glass and out. And that's
Right.
not a really good outlet pass for the skill guys.
Yeah, I mean, hockey, you really do see, the whole team type approach. I mean, Larry Murphy was, I played with Larry in Pittsburgh for a couple of years, a great defenseman, had a great career. But, he was a much better player with the puck and making plays than he was when he was on a weak team. And then the puck's in your zone, then you got to play defense the whole shift. And, we all struggle a little bit when the puck's in your own zone. But when you got good forwards like Mario and Jagger and Ron Francis and Kevin Stevens, so on, I mean, to be able to make those good plays, they appreciate it, and we appreciate it because, we like playing at the other end more than our zone. So it's kind of a nice situation to be on a good team.
Yeah, that
Gord, besides the Somnar, is there one coach or a couple coaches that, as you went along in the NHL career, that still stand out in your mind where he was still teaching like an old dog new tricks?
Yeah, I would say when I went through Pittsburgh, I had, kind of run into a little bit. Brian Sutter was a hard-nosed, tough coach in Pittsburgh, and all Sutters, kind of, had a way they liked to play and so on, and in a real positive way. I have a lot of respect for Brian. But I ended up getting traded to Pittsburgh, and Bob Johnson was the coach there. And he knew me a little bit from, I played in the '84 Canada Cup, and I played in the World Championship I think he was involved in. And so, I mean, he knew me a little bit, knew my strengths. And I think a good coach, when you use that player and get the best out of him with his strengths, and coming to Pittsburgh, he knew I could, pass the puck and so on. And, we had a great first year, obviously, winning the cup and so on. And then that summer, Bob passed on after brain cancer, and then Scotty Bowman took over the next year. So it was a little bit of a change, where Bob had his style and Scotty had his style, but we won back-to-back cups. So it was, obviously nice to be part of it, but also to see two different type of coaches win a cup with the same team was, a good memory too.
92 is our beloved Blackhawks. That the cup was raised at the stadium. But talk just a little bit. Was Scotty hands-on, or did he have his assistants run the practices? Obviously a huge difference, or is there a significant difference between him and Badger Bob?
Yeah, Scotty was, they were definitely different, Nat. And Scotty, Barry Smith, who had coached with Scotty on just about, the last 10, 15 years of his coaching career, not only Pittsburgh, Detroit, and so on. I mean, Barry was pretty involved with, running practices and different things like that. But Scotty was definitely the head coach, and you knew, what he wanted. And at different times when he did come in and talk, one-on-one meetings, little things like that. But Badger Bob had probably a little more personality to him. And I think that on every team, whether it's even a peewee team, I mean, the top players are going to get their ice time and everything else. Bob had an extra way of working with the bottom side of the lineup and making those guys feel important. And I think that he got the most out of the bottom half of any coach that I saw over my career.
And who was more XOs, Johnson or Bowman?
I would say Johnson a little bit more. Barry Smith was involved with the team on both years, and he was kind of a real X's and O kind of guy. So, I think one good thing every head coach should do is try and complement themselves with, every head coach has a little bit of a weak area. And if you, have that strength with your staff, then you're going to have, a great coaching staff in that. And I think the underrated guy in Pittsburgh was really Craig Patrick. I mean, to be able to bring in Scotty Bowman as his player personnel guy, and then Bob Johnson was our coach, and then Barry Smith, Rick Kehoe, guys like that. I mean, sometimes in hockey, people get a little threatened by other people that are really good at what they do too. But Craig just seemed to really, have that confidence and he knew that the better people I have around me, I'm going to look good. And obviously he did. And that was kind of, every general manager should, go off of what Craig did.
You talk about Craig and Smith, heavy influence of USA Hockey. I'm sure as a member of the USA Hockey Hall of Fame that very proud of the way the game has progressed in the US, the caliber of players, the development model, all of those things got to make you feel pretty good.
No, it does. That's a great question. I mean, I come from a family where my oldest brother is 82 now, and when he played at Michigan State in the early 60s, he was the only American on the team. And then my brother Doug was one of the only Americans in the 60s, and he was one of the first Americans to get to 400 games. I was fortunate to be the first American to play 1,000 games, but I think that when you look back at U.S. hockey and not only the 60 Olympic team, the 80 Olympic team, and just where they've continued to go, and it's every state that's really into hockey and so on. I mean, it's they should pay a little more respect maybe to what was opened up years ago, and not to live in the past, but at the same time, I think the USA Hockey is in the Ann Arbor program has been a key in tournaments and things like that, giving players like that confidence.
It's come a long way though, right, Gord?
Yeah, it has for sure. I mean, when I was in junior in 1974 in the Western League, I was the only American in the whole league. So I mean, now American kids, have most of them do go to college, but more and more are playing junior too. But college hockey wasn't really the stepping stone, back in the 70s, because junior hockey and Canadian hockey was kind of the top league in a sense, and that was kind of why I decided to go up there and play.
So, as the only American in the Western, how often did you get challenged?
We had a pretty tough team. We had an old Chicago Blackhawk that him and I were roommates when he was 16, I was 17. Kurt Frazier, if you remember that.
Okay, that's a good guy to hang with. There you go. Okay.
And my defense partner was a guy named Kim Claxton, who was one of the tougher players in the WHA days and that. But Mel Bridgman was the first player of the whole NHL draft for Philadelphia the following year. So we had a really good balance, and they treated me well. But I definitely heard the phrase, and Exon Yankee was kind of a name I heard quite a bit. And the toughest league I ever played in, to be honest with you, in the house, played for the Junior Wings in Detroit. But all the teams we played against were Canadian teams. And a team of 8 teams, we were the only U.S. team. So it definitely was a challenge from that end back in the day.
Yeah, now you look at Detroit with Little Caesars and Victory Honda and Bell Tire and all of those teams that everybody else in USA Hockey AAA judges themselves against those teams, obviously from the Midwest, obviously from being from Chicago and all. Those guys now are the the bell toll, if you will, in terms of how you measure your program against those guys.
Right. No, they've definitely developed from the midget hockey to the stepping stone with so many junior teams now for kids, and they're all expected really to go play at least 2 years of junior. I would say 90% of them before they end up going to college. And I think long-term wise, I mean, college hockey, not only the way they promote it, with getting great competition, being seen and so on, but then also, get 2-3 years of an education that when you do get done with your playing career, you've got a nice education process to drop back on, and you're only taking 1 year of university and get your degree and move on to life after hockey.
Gord, was there any one player or any one team that you still think about? Let's talk about just in sense player that you knew if you had to go up against a line or a certain player that you were like, oh boy, we got to play these guys again. They're, it's pain in my side or pain in my whatever, wherever. Who was it? I mean, who were the team or the player that just comes to mind where you're like, oh boy?
Yeah, I would say, like the Islanders had 4 years where they won the cup in the early 80s. And, the play in the playoffs against Gillies, Trottier, and Bossy. I mean, there's not too many lines better than that. And then when we moved over to playing against Edmonton for 4 years when they won the cup, you got Gretzky, Curry, and, Anderson coming right back at you. So, I had a great line one time. I think it was anyways. I was coaching a bunch of guys in the summer one time, and I was just out of hockey. And I got into coaching, scouting, and all that kind of stuff in life after hockey. But I was, telling these, guys getting ready for the season, I said, you guys are pretty lucky. You're playing against Messier when he's 38 years old. I said, try playing against him when he was 23. And don't tell me how great the hockey is today. I mean, Messier was an unbelievable, much better player at 23 than he was at 38. But, same with Yager. I mean, Yager played into his early 40s and, play against Yager when he was 22. And, that's the one thing, with age, we all get older and slower, but in your prime, it's a whole different game, that type of thing.
Well, we as diehard Blackhawk fans saw many a dream fall to ashes with number 11 in blue and orange cruising around the stadium, just doing whatever he wanted at times during the playoffs and just absolutely taking over a game just by his sheer will. And the fact that the way the games were officiated back then, there was not a lot that was going to stop Messier from what he was doing.
Yeah, but the flip side of that for Chicago is that Jonathan Toews, I would say, was pretty close to Messier in a lot of ways. He maybe didn't have quite that extra meanness that Messier had, but from a leadership standpoint and a top center, to win Stanley Cups around, and that your crowd, your fans were pretty fortunate to have him and hopefully he can come back and play. I mean, that was sad last year, with COVID and everything else, and hoping he can come back and get his game going again.
Sure.
That brings the cup teams and the teams you played on. Nobody, you can't underestimate the value of a locker room and leaders in there. Just talk a little bit about, I know the guys that everybody thinks the guys who are the best players and the most skilled players are the leaders, but maybe some of the other guys on your Penguin teams that people don't know about who spoke in the locker room and people listened.
Yeah, I think that, that's the job. I mean, I got into, I did pro scouting with Montreal for 8 years, and I was assistant coach in Phoenix for a couple of years. And I was involved, in scouting and, being around the NHL for 13 years in a different level than playing. But, to be able to, use Pittsburgh as an example. I mean, Yager was, 18, 19 years old, hardly spoke the language at all. And Craig Patrick made a trade with Calgary. You got Yari Verdinian, an older Czech player who was in his early 30s, could speak English. And, all of a sudden he was rooming with Yager. And, he just made him feel a lot more comfortable and being able to help him with the language and things like that. And that was, a key, point right there. And Brian Trache was our third, fourth line center at his age of 34. He was around my age at the time, 34, whatever. And, and the hardest thing sometimes for a guy like Brian is to accept what that role is at the age of 34 and not really, thinking he's Mario or Ron Francis, who are number 1 and 2 centers during that time. So, I think when you do have veterans around, they really do have to learn to accept where they're at this stage of their career, but then take all that experience and pass that on in the locker room. And coaches are around the players a lot, but the veterans are around them all the time.
And they're always setting the example, correct? They're always trying to set an example for that young player.
Yeah, and that's not only, in the locker room and on the ice, but it's, how to, being out in the public and, going out the night before a game and taking care of yourself and making good decisions and things like that. So, I mean, the more times you've got good veterans showing the way, young players have somebody to look up to, and definitely makes a difference.
Yeah. Everybody we saw, even, one of the probably going to be considered one of the top 5 US born players ever in Patrick Kane, didn't always achieve what he thought he could. And now you look at him as 30 something as a parent, and now all of a sudden he's a role model, when we as Blackhawk fans can remember back to him being 18, 19 years old going, he's at the University of Wisconsin, the knucklehead's at it again. And now look where he's at. He's wearing a letter. So that progression to having those good guys around him obviously makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think the old saying, in hockey is to have the mind of a 30-year-old, the legs of a 20-year-old, and you combine them together, you would have a great player. And, when you do get a big contract and you come in, early in the NHL when you're, 20, I was 18 playing against guys and so on. And, it does take time to mature and, it's just part of the process, but, it is what it is, I guess.
Well, yeah,
What's going on with you nowadays? What are you totally out of the hockey then, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I still, last summer I had a couple, first time caught up with me a little bit. I had some back surgery and a double hernia operation that kind of took me out for about 6, 7 months or whatever. But kind of come back from that again. I'm not really working, as far as in hockey or anything else right now. Be turning 64 next month, and my wife just turned 64. I was playing her the Beatles song the other day when I it turned 64, giving her a little shot. But yeah, I'm happy where I'm at. I spent 13 years, like I said, in hockey after with Phoenix and Montreal. Then I got involved as a head coach of a high school team for 4 years. We ended up, last spring, I was watching about 8 of our kids playing D1 hockey on different teams and all that. So we had some good players. It was fun to, to see their development and then also be part of helping kids mature during those high school years. And so I did that for 6 years, a couple of years at a D3 college hockey program there. And then, I've run a lot of different things. I had my own business and different things when I was younger, but I'm at a point now where I'm very content in life and got grandkids and my kids and so on. So my wife and I have been married 42 years and enjoying life together.
Well, we should have had that right on your bio right away. That 42 years of marriage supersedes anything else that you could have done on the ice there. So good on you, and even better probably on your wife, she'll say, for putting up with you and being a support, obviously through your career, and wouldn't be easy for her as well. So congratulations on that. So we got to,
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if we didn't ask, because I didn't even realize I can actually go in a closet and find the ticket from the very first Chicago Wolves game where you were dressed and on the ice at the at the time, whatever it was, the Rosemont Horizon. Now it's the Allstate Arena.
Number 21.
Take us quickly in terms of how you end up wearing the maroon and gold of the Chicago Wolves.
A couple. I had a good inside. My nephew, Alex Roberts, was one of the assistant coaches. He had been working with Grant Mulvey a little bit, and I'm pretty sure, John, you can help me out here, but the NHL was on strike that year, I think, until January. Yes. So there was a lot of, NHL guys, trying to look for different things. And, it was perfect for my career. I mean, I was a step slower. The league was maybe a little step slower than what the NHL was, but, it was, I got a lot of ice time. Gene Ubriaco was the coach, Grant Mulvey, the general manager, Don Levine, the owner. And, we had great crowds and, be part of their first year and bring hockey.
Gord, you were actually a player coach on that first team in that 94-95 season. If everybody, I don't think a lot of people knew that, but you were a player coach. And I remember that year with Multi, LC, Cord, all those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ray LeBlanc and Wendell Young.
Yep. Yeah, we have some different veterans and all that. I wouldn't say old Gene Ubriaco let me be a player coach or a coach too much. He was definitely the coach. But
he's coming on in a couple of weeks, by the way.
What's that?
He's coming on in a couple of weeks.
Oh, is it? Yeah. Okay.
I got the wild Italian to come on.
I would say the one thing with Gene is that my nephew Alex was an assistant coach at your forum, and then I was, helping out with practices and different things like that. It was a bit of a challenge, trying to walk that rope between being a player and being part of the coaching staff type thing. But Gene used to leave the odd bag up top in the bus or whatever, and I think between Alex and a couple of the other guys on the team, they always seemed to get Gene's suitcase or bag back to him by the time he checked into the hotel or whatever.
Veteran stories.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. Obviously, you hear a lot of stories from guys who physically, the world isn't treating them the same way after all the years that they've, basically donated their body as far as hockey, especially as a defenseman, blocking shots and doing all those types of things. So really glad to hear that other than the recent bump, that things are good in that regard. So when your wife says, okay, we've had too much family time, what do? You go fishing or play golf, or how do you fill some free time then?
Yeah, I've never had a problem filling free time.
Good on you.
I would say the one thing my wife and I do a lot of is electric bikes. Especially last year when I was coming back from some surgery and that. You can still get a great workout on them. Minnesota's got more bike trails. We live by a lake that's got a bike trail around and things like that. I mean, we can put 20 miles on and be out, seeing, the lake scenery and everything else in that. So I would say anybody over 60 years old, get an electric bike and enjoy it. And I golf, I play tennis, we do a lot of walking, and we're very involved with our 2 grandkids, things like that. So I'm a curious person by nature. I never let a day go by without getting the most out of it. Is my key to living, enjoying life.
Good on you. Well, you've been very gracious with your time as far as this interview, talking to a couple old Blackhawk fans. So, John, I'm going to give you the wrap-up question for Gordie there, if you got one.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to end it this way. Gord, I met you in that 94-95 season. I was just starting out as a coach at the Northwest Chargers. And of course, your son, Ben, was on that team, and got to know you. And you were, I think you even helped out with us with a couple of practices. And you were always just so gracious with your time then. And I have to tell you, that was one of my first years after I had stopped playing, of course, on the amateur level. Mark, by the way, Mark was a defenseman just like you, and he was a great defenseman coming out of my town, Norridge, Illinois. But I have to tell you, Gord, I'll always remember you. And I know our wives knew each other and everything else. And, it's just this was an honor of honors when I called you, you said, hey, I wouldn't mind coming on Angles and Attitudes with you and Mark. And again, your career, the resume, as I look at it, fantastic. USA Hockey Hall of Famer, over 1,000 games. You helped so many teams. And I have to be honest with you, when I met you in that 94-95 season, I could see you were that type of guy who was that mentor, and you're just a class act, and I truly appreciate this tonight.
Yeah, thanks, John. It was nice to hear from you, and definitely, our kids starting out hockey at 6, 7 years old, whatever it was that year, and
yeah,
now they're playing senior hockey and playing in front of one person every time they go out on a Tuesday night. You know who that one person is?
Who?
The Zamboni driver.
Yeah, I don't see Vince getting out of the first period anymore. Yeah.
So,
hey, my kid played Division III ACHA his freshman year, so he's used to playing in front of those big crowds at 9:30 at night in Dubuque, Iowa. So he was humbled really quick there. So it was a good primer for men's league at this point. So.
Right. Yeah, my son played D3 hockey too after high school and all that. So. We every now and then we get the chance to play together a little bit, with pickup hockey, that type of thing. So he's doing well.
Too much still. He still chirps too much. He's not old enough yet to just shut up, even on the bench. I said, do your teammates? He said, this is the way I played all through college. That's what got me going. So I don't know any other way, Dad. So I said, okay.
He's chirping.
To be.
Yeah. Hey, good seeing you guys. Thanks a lot.
You as well. Stay well.
Gordie, thank you so much.
For your time.
Okay.